Donald Trump will become the 47th President of the United States.
When Donald Trump won the US election in 2024, it was something of a shock to the system. As I've explored on this channel before, commentators described it as the great vibe shift, a sense that Trump's populist vision was now victorious in America. But his victory also had an effect in other countries. In the UK, it was another boost to Nigel Farage and his party Reform, with speculation, not least from him, that he could even become the next Prime Minister. In Germany, with elections approaching, the momentum was with the far-right AfD. In Canada, Pierre Poilievre seemed on course to become the next Prime Minister, and generally the news was full of commentary about the inevitable rise of the far-right. But since then, things have changed a bit.
We are likely just days away from a federal election campaign, and the winds in Canada's political sails are changing course.
I cannot think of a swing that happened as quickly.
Europe is in shock just days before the German federal elections.
Sparked anti-US demonstrations.
Farage's run of good news seriously stalled this weekend.
From Canada to the UK and other European countries, the seemingly inevitable rise of the populist right seems to be faltering. Some are even speculating about whether this is the twilight of the populists. On this channel, I explore the ideas that explain the news at a deeper level, and when Trump won, I used some of these concepts to argue Trump's presidency would soon falter. But what I didn't consider is that his actions would also damage populist right-wing movements around the world. In this video, I want to explain what's going on, and share 3 ideas that will explain not only why this is happening, but that will be useful to you in understanding the news long after today's headlines have been forgotten. Okay, let's do this. We should start by recognising that for a movement that was against globalism, the populist right has been a very global movement.
I don't know how CPAC became a global brand fighting the globalists with people here from like every country all over the world, but let's go with it.
In the US, the annual CPAC conference is often addressed by populists from other countries. Steve Bannon has toured Europe in efforts to spread MAGA ideas. Elon Musk has addressed rallies of the AfD, and various populist voices of North America have regularly visited European conservative conferences. Across the world, populists on the right have found common cause over many things, including a dislike of the woke agenda, establishment elites, and the media. But another key idea that brought this movement together was a belief in national sovereignty, strong borders, opposing immigration, and the reach of globalist institutions.
They go to the World Economic Forum every year and preach that you're racist and you're nativist and you're xenophobes.
But once in power, the way Donald Trump has pursued his America First agenda has destroyed this international solidarity. And the best example of this is Canada.
I do like the O Canada, right? It's a beautiful thing. I think we're going to have to keep it for the 51st state. I call him Governor Trudeau.
After Trump's victory, the Liberals, Canada's main left-of-centre party led by Justin Trudeau, were unpopular, with only 20% support in the polls. And it looked like the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, was certain to become Canada's next Prime Minister. But since then, Donald Trump's aggressive tariffs and insults towards Canada have led to a patriotic backlash.
It's becoming hard to miss on social media a surge of videos urging Canadians to get those elbows up.
Fight when we must, elbows up.
With the phrase elbows up, inspired by hockey legend Gordie Howe, becoming a slogan for the reaction to Donald Trump.
Elbows up, everybody!
For some time, Poilievre has been described in the press as a populist, a kind of Canadian Trump. But now this association with Trump has left him vulnerable.
Everything is broken.
Everything is broken. Fake news.
Fake news.
The left-wing censorship regime.
Their woke censorship ideology.
Defeating the radical left.
Radical, leftist, authoritarian.
The result, as I record this, is that the Liberals have gone from being over 20 points behind to actually being ahead, and could actually win the upcoming election, which would have been unthinkable not that long ago. Now, it's worth saying that the change in polls is not all about Trump, but it isn't only in Canada where we've seen populists getting frustrated.
We won the federal election in 2025.
The AfD came second as expected in the German elections, but have been locked out of power by the other parties. Marine Le Pen, the leader of French populist party National Assembly, has had to distance herself from Trump, condemning the brutality of his policy on Ukraine. And Giorgia Meloni, populist Prime Minister of Italy, is also having to walk a fine line because of Trump's actions. And there are similar pressures everywhere from the Netherlands to Denmark, who Trump is threatening to take Greenland from.
It is not for sale. Let me put it in words you might understand. Mr. Trump, f*** off.
Now the news and polls will change, but I think what we're seeing right now is deeper than this particular moment. It's a problem at the level of ideas. You see, however warm this international populist movement, there was, hidden under the surface, a contradiction. I've talked on this channel before about how there are different types of nationalism. For along with ethno-cultural nationalism, often associated with persecuting minorities and war, this isn't the only option. I, for example, feel something closer to a civic kind of nationalism, a love and attachment of the country I live in, without that meaning I want to attack or insult other countries. A reason why I'm drawn to this kind of nationalism is reciprocity, an idea at the heart of philosophical liberalism. If we want freedom of religion, then we have to give that freedom to others. If we want freedom of speech, we can't restrict that freedom to ourselves. And if we want respect for our country's sovereignty and borders, then we have to respect it in others. But of course, Donald Trump is no liberal. He has no principled respect for the ideas of sovereignty and borders. If he believed in these principles, he wouldn't insult Canadian national identity at its most basic level. He wouldn't talk about taking over Greenland, and he'd be angry about Putin's invasion of Ukraine. I mean, if you think the World Economic Forum is an attack on national sovereignty, what about an invasion that's trying to wipe your country off the map? Populists around the world famously disdain liberalism, but at the same time it seems they had a liberal expectation that Trump would respect their countries as they respected the US. Instead, they got an egocentric power trip, which quite understandably voters have rejected, leaving populist ideas in these countries tarnished as a result. So that's reason one. Nationalism without liberal reciprocity falls apart and becomes just aggression, which, unsurprisingly, voters reject. The second way Donald Trump has caused problems for populists in other countries is best explained by looking at my country, the UK.
They had an election on November the 5th, and they've got a new president. Chap who's a friend of mine, Donald J. Trump, is now their president.
Nigel Farage, the leader of the right-wing party Reform UK, loves Donald Trump, and Trump's election victory gave his party extra momentum. But listen to Nigel Farage more recently.
I'm not a populist.
Which one do you like?
I'm not a populist.
I've heard you call yourself a populist.
I've realised I'm not. I've realised that's a mistake.
It was last week you called yourself a populist.
I am not a populist. If you think about the issues that I champion...
Are you rebranding in front of our eyes?
If you think about the issues that I've championed, they've nearly all been small minority issues.
The reason for this change is similar to what's been happening elsewhere. Trump's actions have been unpopular. As well as talk of tariffs, there was the attack on Zelensky in Ukraine, who most in the UK see as a war hero. And JD Vance's dismissal of the UK as a random country that hasn't fought a war in 30 or 40 years also went down badly, with many pointing out that UK soldiers fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. All this would be bad news for Nigel Farage at any time, but it's worse because Farage is currently trying to move his party away from the extremes in order to increase its support. I mean, I know it might be hard to believe that Farage is worried about seeming too extreme. After all, he has a long history of controversy and has often been accused of dog-whistle racist politics. But Farage knows that being too extreme is a losing position. That's why he has repeatedly ejected members or candidates who say racist things, and you can compare that with the Trump administration who asked them to stay, and kept Tommy Robinson, an anti-Islam campaigner popular in MAGA circles, out of the party. In fact, he's promoted a Muslim to be the new chairman of the party. However, just as Nigel Farage is doing this,
I want deportation. Not just for the rapists, but also the family members who are aware of their heinous crimes. If that results in tens of thousands of deportations, then that is what must happen.
This is Rupert Lowe, who was one of the few people to be elected as part of Farage's new party in 2024, talking about deporting family members of criminals. Later adding on Twitter, he supported deporting, quote, entire communities. Now such language might be fine for American right-wingers, but in the context of UK politics, it's toxic. And one person who knows that is Nigel Farage.
The political impossibility to deport hundreds of thousands of people. We simply can't do it.
But is it your ambition?
No. You know, I'm not going to get dragged down the route of mass deportations or anything like that.
And it was for this reason Farage asked his MP to remove talk of mass deportations from a speech, calling it, quote, a very grave, dark and dangerous use of language. Now there's nothing that unusual about party members being more extreme and radical than party leadership, but Reform supporters have become more troublesome for Farage because they've been encouraged by Trump's victory and radicalised by Elon Musk's Twitter, which is, incidentally, paying over £3,000 a month to Rupert Lowe as revenue share for his punchy tweets. In fact, Elon Musk kind of started this whole thing when, upset by Farage's rejection of Tommy Robinson, he called for Farage to be ousted as leader and suggested as his replacement, Rupert Lowe. Now it's true the fight between Nigel Farage and Rupert Lowe isn't just about positioning, it's also about a clash of egos. But the end result is that the party has lost an MP and Farage has a new enemy who will now be trying to undermine him. If you zoom out, it seems like the international nature of the populist movement and the outsized influence of Donald Trump is making it harder for populists in other countries to actually win power. So there's the second reason. Trump's movement has made populist supporters more extreme in a way that's undermining their electoral chances. To explain the final way in which Trump is ruining populism, we need to consider the different ways ideas can affect politics. You see, when we think about ideas, we often think about their merits, whether they are convincing or not. But ideas can also have impact by just being popular or giving the sense that they are winning.
What a good feeling. We like winning, don't we?
In other words, an idea's power can come not just from its merits because it's convincing, but from its prestige, the sense that it's an influential winning idea. When Trump won, populism seemed to be what Hegel called the Geist der Zeiten, the spirit of the times, or Zeitgeist. And this had political consequences. For example, look at all the business leaders that switched to Trump and conservative positions when he won. Some of this might have been genuine, but it was also driven by a sense that Trump's ideas were in the ascendancy, and that if they didn't get on board, they were going to lose out. But Trump's actions since winning power have started to undo this sense of dominance by, well, being incompetent and unrealistic. To explain what I mean, let's compare Trump's Ukraine policy to some of his other actions.
You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now.
Since taking power, Trump has gradually withdrawn support for Ukraine and given ground to Putin and Russia. But while, in my opinion at least, this doesn't seem in the US's best interests, it has a kind of consistency and logic to it. Like, it's wrong, but it doesn't seem weak. But when Trump lets Musk blow up his own government's ability to do things, or goes back and forth on trade policies, at one point switching rates twice in a single day, or suggests nonsense ideas about America taking over Gaza without any soldiers, all while presiding over an economy starting to crash, the whole thing seems less like the winning thing and more like a movement that's going to blow up under its own contradictions, incompetence, and inability to understand reality. One parallel might be the Black Lives Matter movement of 2020, that went from being at the heart of the zeitgeist, an idea that everyone, from normies on social media to business interests, rushed to accommodate themselves to, and then developed into a set of ideas that were rejected even by many of the people they aimed to help. Putting aside the merits of these ideas, you can see how ideas can have a kind of prestige that rises or falls, and this has consequences for their impact. And that's what I think we will see increasingly with Trump: chaos and incompetence that will damage the prestige and impact of populism around the world. Now, of course, there's about a million things we could say at this point. Trump is still in power, the Canadian Conservatives might still win, and UK voters largely didn't notice the infighting within Reform. And of course, the decline of populism has been predicted before. But while I don't expect populism and its ideas to disappear, I think we are seeing some of the shine come off them, as these ideas make contact, as all political ideas do, with the messiness of reality. Okay, wait just a moment. If you enjoyed that, please do obviously subscribe, ring the bell, all those sorts of things. Also, sign up for Substack email notifications. It's a free way of getting a notice when I publish a new video. If you have enjoyed these videos or you're liking this channel, please do consider one of the paid options. There's article and book recommendation, things I'm reading, Q&As, DMs, notice of in-person meetups. If you're a filmmaker, I have lots of tips and advice. Also, as you can see, I'm thanking people in the end credits. There's 2 lovely people there so far. Thank you very much to them. I think they're supporters. To be honest, they might have pressed something accidentally, but either way, it's lovely to have them there and lovely to have you there if you want to come join.